In a world where love is often divided by race, Maya Thompson, a determined young black woman, and Ryan Collins, the privileged son of a wealthy businessman, find themselves caught in a whirlwind of passion and forbidden desire. As their friendship blossoms into something deeper, Maya is forced to confront a harsh reality. Ryan's father, a man who holds all the power, would never accept their love. Torn between loyalty to his family and his growing feelings for Maya, Ryan must decide. Will he choose the path of least resistance or dare to defy everything he's been taught for a love that could change them both forever? The stakes are high, and the tension is unbearable. What price will they pay for love in a society that isn't ready to accept it? Hello and welcome to the Alcott Stories YouTube channel. We're so happy to have you join our growing family. Whether you're new here or a returning viewer, your presence means the world to us. Here, we share stories of love, courage, and breaking barriers, and we're thrilled to have you along for the journey. Get ready for some heartwarming, thought-provoking content that's sure to inspire and touch your heart. To our amazing Alcott family, thank you for your continued support. Your likes, comments, and shares make all the difference, and we're beyond grateful for the positive energy you bring to this community. We couldn't do this without each of you, and we're so excited to keep creating and growing together. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. Welcome again, and we're so glad you're here. In a busy, vibrant city, Maya Thompson, a young black woman, had built her life from scratch. A graduate of a local university, Maya worked as a secretary for Mr. Edward Collins, a wealthy and influential businessman. She was bright, dedicated, and always went above and beyond in her work. But life had not been easy for her. Maya had grown up in a small, tight-knit community where she faced daily challenges, prejudices, and assumptions that made her feel like an outsider in many circles. She always tried to rise above these hurdles, finding strength in her determination to succeed. Edward Collins, her boss, was a man of old money, power, and influence. He was used to the world bowing at his feet, and Maya respected him for his work ethic, even though his views sometimes clashed with hers. He had a son, Ryan, a recent graduate who had spent several years studying abroad in Europe. Ryan was everything Maya had never expected: wealthy, confident, and a little out of touch with the struggles of ordinary people. As the son of such a prominent businessman, he had always been given the best of everything and had a future seemingly paved with success. Despite their obvious differences, Ryan quickly recognized something in Maya that stood out to him: her quiet strength, intelligence, and the way she carried herself. Unlike his father, who often saw people as roles to be played, Ryan saw Maya as a person. They began to talk more during their breaks at work. Maya found Ryan to be surprisingly humble for someone so wealthy, and they discovered they had more in common than either expected. Their conversation started small, casual chats about life, books, and favorite movies, but soon grew deeper as they shared personal stories about their experiences, struggles, and dreams. It was during one of their late afternoon coffee breaks when Ryan first asked Maya about her background. She told him about the challenges of growing up in a predominantly white community where she sometimes felt invisible. Ryan listened intently, his curiosity growing with every word. Maya was used to explaining her experiences, but Ryan's genuine interest felt different. He didn't just hear her, he understood her. As the weeks passed, their friendship deepened. Maya found herself looking forward to their conversations, and Ryan seemed to seek her out whenever he needed a break from the pressures of work. One evening, after a particularly long week of deadlines and stress, Ryan invited Maya to dinner. It was unexpected, but Maya agreed, intrigued by the invitation. She had never thought of Ryan as anything more than a colleague, but something about the way he made her feel heard and valued made her curious about the possibility of a deeper connection. That night at dinner, Maya felt a spark she hadn't felt in years. As they ate and talked, their laughter filled the air, light and easy. Ryan's charm and easygoing nature had a way of putting her at ease, and she found herself sharing things she hadn't planned to. They spoke about their childhoods, their hopes for the future, and even their deepest fears. Maya laughed more that night than she had in a long time. The warmth in Ryan's eyes and the way he treated her as an equal made her feel special in a way she hadn't experienced before. By the end of the evening, as they said their goodbyes, Maya realized something. She had come to see Ryan in a different light. What had started as a simple friendship was now something more, though she wasn't sure what it meant yet. Ryan, too, seemed affected by the evening, his usual confidence giving way to something softer, more genuine. The connection between them was undeniable. As Maya walked home that night, she felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, something beautiful was beginning to blossom between them. She had always been cautious when it came to matters of the heart, but tonight something had shifted. As the cool night air wrapped around her, Maya couldn't help but smile, hoping that perhaps Ryan felt the same way. But for now, all she knew was that the evening had felt like the beginning of something more than just an unlikely friendship. As the weeks passed, Maya and Ryan's bond grew stronger with each conversation they shared. They began to open up to each other in ways neither had expected. During their late-night talks, they exchanged their dreams, their deepest fears, and their hopes for the future. Maya shared her vision of someday owning a business, making a real impact in her community, while Ryan confessed that he often felt trapped in the expectations placed on him because of his family's wealth. Despite their differences, they began to feel like they could be honest with one another, a rarity in a world filled with masks and pretenses. Ryan, in particular, started to confide in Maya about something that had been troubling him for a long time: his father's beliefs. He wasn't blind to the world his father had built and the outdated views that shaped his worldview. Mr. Collins had grown up in an era where the color of someone's skin often determined their worth. His prejudice ran deep, and though Ryan loved his father, he couldn't deny the discomfort he felt when he witnessed his father's biases, especially when it came to relationships. One evening, while sitting across from each other in a quiet cafe, Ryan admitted something he had been holding inside for weeks. "I don't always agree with my father's views, especially on the subject of race," Ryan said, his voice heavy. "He's stuck in the past, Maya. He doesn't believe that people like you and me should be together. And no matter how much I try to change his mind, I know deep down that I'll never convince him." Maya's heart sank at his words, but she tried to keep her composure. She had sensed the tension in Ryan's voice during their conversations, but hearing him say it out loud made it real. "So, what does that mean for us?" she asked quietly, her voice betraying the uncertainty she felt. Ryan sighed deeply, looking away for a moment as though grappling with his thoughts. When he met her gaze again, his eyes were filled with a mix of sadness and longing. "It means that if we were to be together, my father would never accept us. He'd never accept you. And I don't know if I can handle the fallout from that. I've always tried to make him proud, and I fear what it would do to him if he found out about us." Maya felt a tight knot form in her chest. She had known deep down that their relationship wouldn't be without its difficulties, but hearing Ryan voice his fears hit harder than she expected. She thought of all the obstacles she had already faced because of her race, how the world sometimes made her feel like she was invisible or never good enough. Now, to hear that Ryan's family might not accept their bond simply because of who she was, made her feel small. But Maya wasn't one to back down from a challenge, and she refused to let fear dictate her path. "Is that why we've been hiding this?" Maya asked, her voice steady, but full of emotion. "Is that why we've kept everything secret? Because of what your father would say?" Ryan nodded, his face a mixture of guilt and sorrow. "Yes. I care about you more than I've ever cared about anyone, Maya. But the reality is, I'm scared of losing my father's approval. He's always had a certain image of what my life should look like, and that image doesn't include someone like you, someone who doesn't fit into the world he's worked so hard to build." Maya took a deep breath, trying to gather her thoughts. Her mind raced with emotions: hurt, frustration, and confusion. She had never expected Ryan to be the one to hold back, to be afraid of what his family might think. She had hoped that their bond, built on mutual respect and understanding, would be enough to push through any barriers. But hearing him admit his fears made it all too real. "Ryan," she said slowly, her voice unwavering despite the storm inside her. "If we're going to be together, it can't be because we're afraid of what other people think. It has to be because we want to be with each other, because we believe in this, because we believe in us." Ryan's face softened, but his eyes were filled with conflict. He reached out to take her hand, his grip gentle but firm. "I don't want to lose you, Maya. I don't want to let go of what we have. But I don't know how to make my father understand. It feels like no matter what I say, he won't accept us." Maya closed her eyes for a moment, gathering her thoughts. She had always been taught to stand tall, to be proud of who she was, no matter the obstacles. "I understand your fears," she said softly, "but we can't let your father's beliefs control our happiness. We can't hide who we are. Not forever." Ryan's expression faltered, but there was a flicker of hope in his eyes. "I don't want to lose you, Maya. I'm just afraid of losing everything I've ever known." Maya squeezed his hand, her heart aching for him. "Then let's face it together. Whatever happens, we face it side by side. But don't let fear keep us from something that feels right." For a long moment they sat in silence, the weight of their words hanging between them. Ryan's internal battle was clear. He was torn between the world he had always known and the world he wanted to build with Maya. But in that moment, Maya knew that she couldn't force him to make a decision. It had to come from his heart. Finally, Ryan spoke again, his voice soft but resolute. "I need time, Maya, but I promise you this. I'll figure this out. I'll figure out what's right." Maya nodded, her heart filled with a mix of hope and uncertainty. Their journey was just beginning, and it wouldn't be easy. But she believed in them, and in time, she hoped Ryan would believe in their love too. After weeks of hiding their growing feelings, Ryan knew it was time to face the ultimate challenge. He had to introduce Maya to his father. It wasn't going to be easy, but he wanted his father to understand just how much Maya meant to him. He hoped that maybe, just maybe, Mr. Collins would see past his biases and accept their relationship. But deep down, Ryan was nervous. He knew his father's prejudices ran deep, and he had no idea how this dinner would go. That evening, Maya dressed carefully, feeling a mix of excitement and dread. She knew this was a big step, but she wasn't sure she was ready for the confrontation she could feel coming. Ryan had prepared her as best he could, but nothing could truly prepare her for the cold reception she was about to face. When they arrived at Mr. Collins's elegant mansion, Maya immediately noticed the difference between her world and his. The large, pristine house, the gleaming silverware on the dining table, and the expensive wine on the table, all of it seemed so far removed from the world she knew. But she stood tall, determined to face whatever was coming with grace. Mr. Collins greeted them with a reserved smile, his handshake firm, but distant. As they sat down to dinner, Maya couldn't help but feel like she was under a microscope. Ryan, though visibly tense, tried to keep the conversation light, hoping to ease the tension. But Mr. Collins's sharp eyes kept flicking toward Maya, as if he was trying to find something to disapprove of. Maya could feel his judgment in the air, thick and suffocating. It wasn't long before Mr. Collins turned his attention to Maya directly. "I'm sure you're a good person, Maya," he began, his tone polite but cold. "But I think you'll agree that Ryan deserves someone who shares his background, his culture. It's just the way things should be." Maya's heart skipped a beat at the subtle insult wrapped in Mr. Collins' words. She could feel her chest tighten with anger, but she refused to let him see her flinch. Ryan glanced nervously at her, his face flushed with frustration, but Maya remained calm. She had heard this kind of talk before, but never from someone she had hoped would be different. She looked Mr. Collins squarely in the eye and replied, her voice steady and firm, I don't believe that my skin color should define who I am or who I can love. I'm a good person, and I love your son. That's all that matters to me." Ryan's grip on his fork tightened, and his jaw clenched. The words had barely left Maya's mouth when Mr. Collins's expression turned icy. He was not going to be swayed so easily. "You're not a part of our world, Maya," Mr. Collins said, his voice cold as steel. "I won't accept this. I won't accept you." The words stung, cutting through the air like a blade. Maya felt the weight of his rejection deep in her chest, but despite the pain, she didn't back down. She refused to let Mr. Collins make her feel small or unworthy. She took a deep breath and replied, her voice firm and unwavering. "Then maybe you need to reconsider what your world really is, Mr. Collins. A world where love, respect, and kindness should matter more than anything else." The room was silent for a moment, the tension hanging thick like a storm cloud. Ryan looked at his father, then at Maya, his face torn between his loyalty to his father and his love for her. He had hoped this dinner would be a chance for his father to open his mind, to see Maya for the wonderful person she was. But instead, it had turned into an explosive confrontation. His heart ached for the woman he cared about, and for the father he had always tried to please. Mr. Collins didn't respond. He simply looked at Maya, his eyes filled with disdain, as if the conversation had already ended in his mind. He turned his gaze to Ryan, his expression hardening. "I can't change the way I think, Ryan. This is who I am. You know how I feel?" Ryan's face flushed with frustration, his emotions raw. He opened his mouth to speak, but Maya placed a hand on his arm, silently telling him to hold back. She wasn't going to let this man dictate their future. The rest of the dinner passed in strained silence. Maya and Ryan exchanged only brief glances, both lost in their own thoughts. Maya could feel the weight of Mr. Collins' disapproval hanging over her, but she wasn't going to let it destroy what she and Ryan shared. As they left the house later that evening, Maya felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her. She had stood her ground, but the battle wasn't over. She knew that the path ahead would be filled with more challenges, more painful moments like this one. But she also knew that she couldn't let the opinions of others define her happiness. Ryan, however, was silent as they drove home. He couldn't shake the anger and frustration he felt at his father's rejection. He had always tried to live up to his father's expectations, to fit into the mold his father had created for him. But tonight, something inside him had shifted. His love for Maya was no longer something he could hide or ignore. He would have to make a choice between the world his father had built and the life he wanted with Maya. When they reached Maya's apartment, Ryan finally spoke, his voice low and filled with emotion. "I'm sorry, Maya. I didn't know it would be like that. I thought maybe he'd understand. But now I realize—" He trailed off, unsure of what to say next. Maya gave him a small, reassuring smile. "Ryan, we knew this wasn't going to be easy, but I believe in us. I believe in you, and in what we have. No matter what your father says, we don't have to let his views define our love." Ryan looked at her, his eyes softening with a mix of gratitude and pain. He took her hand in his grip gentle but firm. "I don't know what's going to happen, Maya. But I promise you, I'm not going to let him come between us. Not now, not ever." Maya nodded, her heart full of both hope and uncertainty. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to give up on Ryan, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. Together, they would face whatever came next, stronger than ever. The tension in Ryan's heart grew heavier with every passing day. The love he had for Maya was undeniable, but the pressure from his father, Mr. Collins, was suffocating. Ryan had always been a dutiful son, doing his best to meet his father's expectations and fit into the world his father had built for him. But now, he found himself at a crossroads, torn between his loyalty to the man who had raised him and his love for the woman who made him feel truly alive. The conversation with his father had left him feeling conflicted. and no matter how much he tried to push the feelings aside, the weight of his father's rejection kept pulling him back. Every moment spent with Maya was tainted by the fear of what would happen if they were to continue their relationship. He could feel his father's disapproval like a constant shadow over him, threatening to ruin everything he had worked for. His future, his career, his reputation, his family's respect felt more fragile than ever. In the depths of his fear and confusion, Ryan made a decision that shattered his heart. One quiet evening, as the sun set behind the city skyline, Ryan drove to Maya's apartment. His heart was heavy with the burden of what he had to do. He loved her more than he could put into words, but the pull of his father's expectations was stronger than he had ever imagined. When Maya opened the door, she immediately sensed something was wrong. Ryan's face was pale, his eyes filled with sadness. "Ryan, what's going on?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped into the apartment, his every movement slow and deliberate. He looked at Maya, his heart aching as he saw the woman he loved standing there, unaware of the pain he was about to cause. "Maya, Ryan's voice cracked as he struggled to find the right words. "I love you. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. But I can't keep fighting my father. He's everything to me. I've tried, but I'm not strong enough to defy him. I don't know how to be the man he wants me to be and also be with you." Maya felt her breath catch in her throat as the words sank in. She had always known that their relationship wouldn't be easy, but hearing Ryan say this, seeing the pain in his eyes, was like a blow to the chest. "Ryan, no," she whispered, shaking her head in disbelief. "You don't need to choose between me and your father, but you can't let fear control your life. You can't let someone else dictate your happiness." Ryan's tears began to fall as the weight of his decision crashed down on him. "Maya, you deserve someone who can give you all of me, without the complications, without the fear. But I can't do that. Not right now. I can't keep fighting my father. He's all I have, and I don't know how to choose between him and you." Maya stood frozen, her heart breaking as she tried to process the words. She had hoped that, somehow, they would find a way to make it work. But Ryan's voice, his defeat, told her that he was giving up. He was choosing his father's approval over their love, and it cut deeper than anything she had ever experienced. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She couldn't let him see how much this was destroying her. "Ryan, I won't make you choose. But you need to understand something. Love is about standing up for each other. It's about fighting for what's right, no matter the cost. You don't have to give up on us just because things are hard. You don't have to give up on me just because your father doesn't approve." Ryan's face twisted with anguish. He reached out to touch her cheek, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. The space between them felt too wide now, as if an invisible wall had been built, separating them. "I'm so sorry, Maya. I wish it could be different, I really do. But I don't know how to make this work. I don't know how to keep going when everything feels so broken." With those words, Ryan turned and walked out the door, leaving Maya standing there, broken and alone. The sound of the door closing behind him echoed in her mind, a painful reminder that the man she loved had just chosen a life without her. She sank to the floor, her heart heavy with the weight of the decision he had made. She had never imagined that love could hurt this much. For days, Maya couldn't shake the emptiness that consumed her. The pain was raw, a constant ache in her chest. She missed Ryan's smile, his laughter, the way he made her feel like anything was possible. But more than that, she missed the idea of a future with him, the dreams they had shared, the plans they had made. Now it all seemed like a distant memory. But even in the midst of her heartbreak, Maya knew she couldn't let this defeat her. She couldn't let fear and prejudice take away the love they had fought so hard to build. Maya believed in love. She believed in a world where people could look beyond skin color and see each other for who they truly were. She believed that change was possible, even if it seemed impossible at times. Maya wiped away her tears and stood up, her resolve growing stronger. She would not let this world's hatred and fear define her. She wouldn't let it define her love for Ryan. Whatever the cost, she would keep believing in what was right, and in the end, she knew that justice and love would prevail. The world may not be ready for the change she dreamed of, but Maya would keep fighting for it, for herself and for the love she knew was worth every sacrifice. Weeks passed, but Maya and Ryan remained separated. Every day felt like an eternity for both of them, but the bond they had shared was never far from their thoughts. Despite the heartbreak of their recent parting, Maya couldn't stop thinking about Ryan, about the love they had built, and the way he had made her feel like she mattered. She knew the path they had chosen would not be easy, but she couldn't help but hold on to the hope that somehow things would work out. Ryan, too, could not shake the memory of Maya. Every moment he spent apart from her made him realize how much she meant to him. The pressure from his father, his family, and his past decisions still loomed over him, but he couldn't ignore the truth any longer. His love for Maya was stronger than all of that. His father's approval, his family's expectations, they no longer mattered in the way they once had. What mattered now was being true to himself and the woman he loved. One afternoon, after weeks of reflection and inner turmoil, Ryan walked into Maya's office. The moment she saw him standing there, a bouquet of flowers in his hand, a mix of emotions flooded through her. She hadn't expected him to come back, let alone make a grand gesture like this. Ryan smiled softly, his eyes filled with determination and tenderness. "Maya," he began, his voice full of conviction, "I've thought about this a lot, and I've made my decision. I'm not going to let my father control my life anymore. I love you, Maya. I always have, and I always will." Tears welled up in Maya's eyes as she stood up from her desk, feeling a weight lift from her chest. She had never doubted Ryan's love, but hearing him say those words again with such certainty filled her with hope. She took the flowers from his hand, her fingers trembling with emotion. "Ryan," she whispered, struggling to find the right words. "Are you sure? It's not going to be easy. There will be challenges, and your father, he won't just accept this." Ryan's expression was steady and determined. "I'm sure," he replied, his voice unwavering. "We've faced enough already, and we'll face whatever comes together. I'm ready for this, Maya. I'm ready to be with you, no matter the cost." Maya's heart swelled with love and relief. Through her tears, she managed to smile, a smile that spoke of everything they had been through and everything they were about to face. "Then let's face it together," she said, her voice full of hope. The next day, Ryan made the call he had been dreading, the call to his father. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he had reached a point where he could no longer hide the truth. His love for Maya was not something to be ashamed of. He owed it to her and to himself to stand up for their relationship, no matter what the consequences might be. "Dad?" Ryan said when Mr. Collins answered the phone, his voice steady, but filled with the weight of what he was about to say. "I've made my choice. I'm not going to hide my relationship with Maya anymore. I love her, and I'm not going to let anyone, especially you, stand in the way of that." Mr. Collins's anger was immediate and intense. "You're making a mistake, Ryan," he said, his voice harsh. "I told you before, this is not how things are done. You can't just throw away everything I've worked for. You can't throw away your future for someone like her." Ryan's resolve only grew stronger in the face of his father's fury. "I'm not throwing anything away, Dad. I'm choosing to live my life, and I'm choosing Maya. I won't apologize for that." The conversation ended with Mr. Collins's frustration echoing in Ryan's ears, but he didn't waver. He knew that his father's anger was a reflection of his own fears and prejudices, not the truth. He had made his choice, and no matter how difficult things would be, he was prepared to face the consequences. Over time, Ryan's decision began to change not only his life but also his father's perspective. It wasn't an overnight transformation. Mr. Collins continued to resist at first, continuing to voice his disapproval. But as he watched his son stand firm in his decision, he couldn't help but start to question his own beliefs. He saw the love Ryan had for Maya, the way she brought out the best in him, and slowly, he realized that maybe his narrow views weren't as right as he had once believed. Ryan's unwavering support for Maya, and his willingness to defy everything he had been taught, began to chip away at the walls his father had built around himself. It wasn't easy, and it didn't happen all at once. But eventually, Mr. Collins came to a difficult but important realization. He had spent his whole life holding on to a world shaped by prejudice, but in the face of his son's courage and the undeniable power of love, he started to understand that love wasn't about skin color or background. Love was about acceptance, respect, and standing by the person you cared about no matter what. It was a slow, painful process, but eventually, Mr. Collins began to soften. He started to see Maya not as a symbol of something he could never accept, but as a person, a kind, intelligent woman who brought joy to his son's life. He saw that, despite their differences, Maya and Ryan were a good match. Slowly, he began to support their relationship in his own way, even if he didn't fully understand it at first. By the time Ryan and Maya married, it wasn't a perfect reconciliation, but it was progress. Mr. Collins attended the wedding, not with the same enthusiasm as he would for other family events, but with a sense of acceptance that he had never known before. It wasn't the world he had imagined, but it was a world where his son was happy, and that, in the end, mattered more than anything else. As Ryan and Maya stood together at the altar, surrounded by friends and family, some of whom had once doubted their love, the joy in their hearts was overwhelming. They had faced every obstacle, every judgment, and every moment of doubt. But they had done it together. Their love was a testament to the power of courage, to the strength it took to defy prejudice and follow their hearts. And in that moment, they knew they had made the right choice. The world wasn't perfect, and there would still be challenges ahead. But Maya and Ryan were ready to face them together, knowing that the love they shared was worth every sacrifice. The courage to choose love had changed everything, and it was a lesson that would resonate far beyond them, touching everyone who believed in the power of love to break down barriers and change the world. Years passed, and Ryan and Maya's love continued to flourish, becoming a shining example of what true love looks like when it overcomes obstacles. They built a life together, full of happiness, mutual respect, and shared dreams. Their bond was stronger than ever, and with each passing year, the world around them began to change, slowly but undeniably. Their story became a beacon of hope in their community, showing others that love wasn't bound by the color of your skin, the history of your family, or the expectations imposed by society. At first, many had doubted them. People who had once judged their relationship now marveled at the strength and depth of their love. It wasn't just about overcoming racism. It was about breaking down the walls that separated people based on their differences. Maya and Ryan's journey had shown that love could transcend all those boundaries, opening hearts and minds in the process. As the years went by, more and more people came to realize that Maya and Ryan's love wasn't just an exception. It was a model for what a truly inclusive and loving world could look like. They were no longer seen as an unlikely couple, but as a perfect example of how love could defy prejudice and create change. Their story was shared in newspapers, at community gatherings, and even in schools. They were invited to speak at events, telling their story of love, acceptance, and courage. Their love, once seen as impossible by some, became a lesson for society. A powerful reminder that true love is built on respect, courage, and standing by one another, no matter the challenges. They proved that family and relationships should not be confined by societal expectations. Love, they showed, was far more important than background, skin color, or the opinions of others. It was about honoring each other, growing together, and facing the world side by side. Ryan and Maya didn't just teach those around them to accept love. They taught them to see beyond superficial differences and to recognize the humanity in everyone. They believed that people could change, and that through love, understanding, and patience, old wounds could heal. They were living proof that hearts could change, and that a single act of defiance, choosing love over prejudice, could inspire others to follow suit. Their story was not just a romantic one, but a lesson for future generations. That love, when true and pure, is transformative. It has the power to break barriers, bridge divides, and unite people in ways nothing else can. The world Maya and Ryan built together wasn't perfect, but it was one they had fought for and created with love and determination. They showed the world that if we have the courage to choose love, anything is possible. As they looked out at the life they had built, surrounded by friends, family, and a community that had once doubted them, Ryan and Maya knew one thing for sure. Love is the most powerful force in the world, and in their case, it had truly changed everything.